Sorry about that. We're having some technical difficulties. This is my first solo stream, so I have to rely on my producers here. Get out of here. Anyway, hey guys, what's up?
Cat just ran.
Oh, man. Be careful. There might be a live cat around here somewhere, so I apologize if the cat named. Oh no, he can stay in here. It might be interesting.
All right.
Have Megatron, destroy everything. The cat's name is Megatron, so definitely give a shout out if you see him. Gee, I forgot to put on my chat here, so let me open that up. Cool. Anyway, so who am I? I am Krishna of Bad Tacos. And what am I doing here? Well, I'm here to talk about my intermittent fasting journey and the future of intermittent fasting for me and in general. Intermittent fasting is a very interesting dietary strategy that has gained a lot of prominence within the last 10 years or so. And it really came out of nowhere. So let's begin. So who am I? I'm Krishna. I'm 31 years old. I've been involved in health and fitness since, honestly, hardcore since maybe the summer of 2011. A little bit before that too. I kind of dabbled, but 2011 was when I really, started to try and take off with it. So as a kid growing up, I was like a lot of people. I like to go outside. I like to play. I'm part of that generation that, still went outside and enjoyed playing with my friends, playing with my brothers, riding our bikes. That might be, it's a bit different now, right? We have video games and TV and Netflix and all that stuff. And I guess, toward the end maybe of my childhood, that stuff started to play more of a part. But even then, playing outside and being active was still a huge part of my life, my brother's lives, my friends' lives, that kind of a thing. So that being said, I didn't like working out, that's not something I particularly enjoyed. In fact, I remember pretty vividly my dad, he owned, he owned a total gym in our basement, that big exercise, that clunky exercise machine that has been advertised by Chuck Norris for like 70 years. Yeah, he used to own one of those. My dad, by the way, is a huge Chuck Norris fan, so makes sense. Easy sale there. But he would be like, you guys need to be active. You're going to put on weight. You're going to get sick. So my dad's been preaching the fitness message pretty much all our lives. Like, even as a really small kid, back when we were living in England, he had an exercise bike. He had a whole rack of weights. So my earliest memories of my dad are him working out. So even though I didn't like it as a kid, still influenced it, still impacted by it. We always saw, our dad just working out, pretty hardcore to stay in shape. He grew up on a farm, so being active for him is a way of life. If you don't move, you die. You don't make money. You don't grow the crops and stuff. So it's always been there. And he used to, make us go on the total gym or the treadmill, and absolutely hated it. Absolutely hated it. I was like, I'd rather watch TV or play video games or go outside and play some basketball. That was the form of activity that I liked a little bit more. Fast forward a little bit, going to college, where a lot of people, their image starts to really become, a big part of who they are, right? So same thing for me. It's funny because my freshman year of college, I actually lost 15 pounds. It's really interesting. A lot of people put on 15 to 30 pounds their freshman year. I actually lost weight. I think it was just a combination of being in a new place and, uneven eating times and just not eating very much when I went. I'm not really sure what was going on, but I lost weight. And but I gained it all back my sophomore year. Coming back, I was much more comfortable. I knew what it was all about. I knew when pizza day was. I knew when French fry day was. I was all about it. So I gained all the way back plus some. So I probably was up, 30 pounds. I don't really remember how much I weighed back then. Probably 150. I think freshman year I was like down to 140. I was like a stick. For reference, right now I'm 170 pounds. So 30 pounds lighter back my freshman year. And I was 31, so that's like 14 years ago for me. So yeah, and also I was putting on weight, and I was like, I should probably do something about this. So I actually started to, go to the gym and, hit the treadmill. I never touched the weights very much. Hit the treadmill, and after doing some of that, I, did a little bit of research online. It was like, for your optimal body composition, you really need to lift weights. So I bought literally one 10-pound dumbbell, I think, from the local Walmart, because that's all I could afford. I was working at the dining hall 2 days a week, so I was making, I think, probably like $60 a week. So one dumbbell is all I could afford, because I still need money for booze and my Nutella and my Cheez-Its. So as you can see, starting off on a real high foot here. Running, slow paced running, jogging on a treadmill, and then basically the only exercises that I would do are dumbbell curls with one 10-pound dumbbell. So like sets of 10, sets of 10, sets of 10, sets of 10. I really like shoulders. I was like, oh, I need my shoulders to get bigger, so I would do like those side raises. Sets of 10, rest, sets of 10, rest, sets of 10. I think it was like 3 sets of 10, right? 10 pounds, curls, shoulders, and then I would throw in some push-ups every now and then. Again, sets of 10, sets of 10. Needless to say, there wasn't much results, I got a little bit of a pump in my shoulders, like right afterward. I'd be like, oh yeah, my shoulders are sticking out. I'm like, good enough. Workout done. I think I used to do that like 3 times a week maybe. So 3 times a week, I'd be like, afterwards, I look in the mirror, flexing with my tiny like chicken bone shoulder from doing 3 sets of 10 shoulder raises. So needless to say, and again, supplementing all of my extreme workout and fitness with with weekend doses of like full jars of Nutella and Cheez-Its. Not mixed together, sometimes mixed together, but mostly separate. Whatever I was feeling. If I was in a savory mood, box of Cheez-Its, and if I wanted something sweet, jar of Nutella. And of course, all the junk food, fast food that was around. Like, there was a place called, I went to school in Ithaca College, upstate New York. And there was a place called DP Dough, which was a fantastic calzone place. And I used to get the buffalo chicken, cheese, buffalo chicken, blue cheese. It was like this big, and if you eat one, you're in a food coma for like 4 hours afterward. It was ridiculous. It was probably like 1,500 calories, easy. Like 2 people were supposed to split one, and of course I would just get one and eat it. Not to mention all the drinking, the usual college life. I'm sure many of you have experienced that. So that was my first forays into working out, and over time I really started to enjoy the running aspect. I actually became a little bit of I was never good, but a little bit of an endurance athlete. Early on, I really enjoyed the steady state cardio. So much so, I think a couple of summers I was like, I don't even need the weight. So I just focused on the running. Sometimes I'd run on the treadmill at home. Sometimes I'd, run outside. At college, I would just run on the treadmill. I guess I was too shy to run outside. I didn't want other people to see me. But at home in New Hampshire, we had like some of these secluded trails, so I could just run, by myself and be in nature by myself, which is quite nice, to be honest. So that was pretty much how I went until maybe the summer of 2011. Summer of 2011, I'd already graduated. I graduated back in 2009, and I actually went to school for a creative writing degree, so you can imagine not a ton of utility right off the bat for that degree, but what are you going to do? You live and you learn. So summer of 2011, I ended up getting a job at Planet Fitness. At that point, right before, I'd been working at a restaurant, and I kind of decided that, you know what, I really enjoy this running thing. By this point, I had read up a lot more on weight training. So I think either the previous year or 2 years before, so maybe 2010, I bought a really influential book. This book sort of started it all for me in terms of weight training and being healthy. At the time, it was called Burn the Fat, Feed the Muscle by natural bodybuilder Tom Venuto. And that book totally changed my life. Totally changed my outlook on what exercise is, what weight training is, how you're supposed to use cardio. Back then, The book has actually been updated to, I actually re-downloaded the updated version of the book a couple months ago just to see if it had changed, and it's changed a lot. But back then, the traditional idea of dieting and exercise was this: 6 small meals a day, with 20 to 30 grams of protein in each meal. 5 to 6 meals a day with 20 to 30 grams of protein in every single meal, right? And the idea behind that was no, the light behind me went off. Oh well. The idea behind that was that you wanted to keep your body in an anabolic state as much as possible, right? If you went more than 3 hours without some protein, your muscles would start to break down, and we know that the more muscle you have, the higher your metabolism, and the higher the metabolism, the more calories you burn, hence the leaner you stay, right? And also the thermogenic effect of food. So the more you eat, the more you stoke that metabolism, because it takes energy to break down food. So the idea was that the more often you eat, the more you stoke that fire, that metabolism, the more calories you burn, the more weight you lose. That was the idea back then. So I followed this book pretty religiously for, probably a year and a half. The weight training was pretty much bro splits. So that means working out 1 or 2 body parts a day, 4 or 5 times a week. And, at this point, so I was 21, 22 years old, and I actually saw pretty good results. I was like, okay, like I got lean, I put on a little bit more muscle. The idea behind it was that you need to increase your weights, progressive overload. So when you're able to do 3 sets of 10 or 12 and with a particular weight, let's say you're doing curls and you can do 3 sets of 12 at 25 pounds. Well, then the next week you need to increase that up to 30 pounds and start over. If you're only able to get like 3 sets of 8 and slowly build from there. And so the idea of progressive overload, I started to incorporate that into my weight training. Obviously, I added a lot more exercise. I learned how to rotate exercises and periodize my training. So sometimes I would do more intense, high volume, lower intensity, and other times more intensity, lower volume, that kind of a thing. So that book really, changed my view on what it meant to be, somewhat fit and healthy, because I was seeing results. The disclaimer there is that 21 years old, almost anything will work, right? You're still young, you still got all those hormones flowing through your body, you haven't beaten it up with too many years of horrendous habits yet, so it's very easy when you're young to make anything work. So that's the caveat. But that being said, at least on the exercise side, totally saw results, and the diet seemed to be working too. So now we're at 2011, the summer of 2011, and I get a job at Planet Fitness, and I applied there because I decided that I really saw a future in health and fitness, and it was super easy. I went into Planet Fitness, and I was like, oh, I saw they're hiring, and I had an interview later that day, I think. Either later that day or the day after. They're like, yeah, come in and interview. They pretty much offered me the job that same day. They called me up and like, yeah, we'd like you to start. And I was like, sweet. Because I was looking to get out of the restaurant thing. I was sick of that, waiting on tables and stuff. And this felt like more like something that I could apply my future to. So, started working at Planet Fitness. The idea was I would start at the front desk and then maybe work my way into becoming a personal trainer down the line or something like that. But that winter, I think it was the winter of 2011, a new personal trainer actually started at the Planet Fitness that I was working in. This is in New Hampshire. And this guy was pretty interesting. He was in really good shape, former college athlete. So one day, got to know him over a few weeks. And one day I asked him, I was like, listen, at that point, like many young males, I was like, I want to build some muscle. I want to get big. I was lean, I was in fairly good shape, but, I was like, I want to get big. I want to put on some like real muscle. And he's like, you really want to put on some muscles? Yeah. He turned to me and he says, you need to do the Herschel Walker method. Do 1,000 push-ups, 1,000 pull-ups, 1,000 sit-ups a day. And he's like, and obviously you can't start that, just work toward it. Just start doing high volume, high frequency body weight movements. And at first I was like, this guy is insane. I was like, are you serious? And he's like, yeah. And eat as much as you can. He's like, when you're having, I think one of the things he says is like, when you're having your toast, you spread that with tons of peanut butter. Load up on the junk food, eat your carbs, rice, chicken, great. Pizza, even better. Just load up. I was like, you know what? I've been doing this weight thing for a while. I've been doing this cardio thing for a little while. I've been doing, the 6 small meals a day. I've seen some progress, but I'm plateauing. I was like, why not? Let me do it for a couple weeks and see what happens. And at the time, I couldn't even do 2 pull-ups. So you can imagine, I spent like some of those first few days, I was just banging out like 20 push-ups, and I go to the pull-up bar, do two pull-ups. Another set of push-ups, 2 more pull-ups. And he made a suggestion. He was like, you want to get your pull-ups up, buy a weighted vest, throw on maybe an extra 20 to 50 pounds in that weighted vest, and just do those for 1 rep. 1 rep. And then you'll be able to increase your max pull-ups. So I did that. I bought a weight vest, which is actually in storage. It's the same weight vest I still have. It's in my parents' storage container. So it's still here. But yeah, I threw on that weight vest. I had 50 pounds on. I started doing pull-ups like 1 rep. And I did that for a week. Got up to doing like 2 reps of, weighted pull-ups, up to 3 reps. Then I took that thing off, and all of a sudden I was busting out 5, 6, 7 reps of pull-ups. I was like, holy crap. So this guy knew what he was talking about. At least it was working on me. The high volume, high frequency, and it was working. I was like getting pretty big, pretty pumped up. That's, I would say, for, I don't have very many gains, whatever. But back then, I was actually seeing very good results. I was putting on some muscle. High volume, high frequency, volume, body weight training. It's, I did that for quite a few years and, saw pretty good results with it. So that was the training aspect. But then after, about a month or so doing that, I noticed my shoulders started to hurt. My shoulders, basically, that's why I was feeling the pain, which makes sense, right? You're doing like high volume calisthenics, and, he didn't give me any other instruction other than to build up to doing 1,000, a day. Right, so at that point, I was probably doing between 200 or 300 a day of the push-ups and maybe around 100 pull-ups a day. Because by that point, I was doing like sets of like 8 and 9, spread that out during the day, or do a morning workout and evening workout. So I was getting my volume in, but the pain in my shoulder was starting to, just creep up a little bit. Very sore, a lot of inflammation, like, doing this hurt. So I asked Mitchell about that. He was like, well, just back off a little bit. I was like, okay. So I did. I backed off, but the pain was still there. So I was like, there's got to be something more to this. Like high volume. It worked for Herschel Walker, who's been doing it since he was a kid. So I read up a little bit more on Herschel Walker. Herschel Walker is a former running back in the NFL, former Heisman winner in college football. Beast. Absolute beast. I think he was like 6'2", 220 pounds. Of just muscle. And the funny thing is, he's in his 50s today, and he still looks relatively the same as he did back then. And his routine is literally like 2,000 push-ups, 1,000 pull-ups, 2,000 like sit-ups. Like he still does this routine every day up until this day. So I was like, this guy's been doing this, so 2011, that's 8 years ago. So even if he's in his 50s, he was in his 40s back then, right? And he still looks like that. So this routine, it was out there online. He was doing it, and a lot of people, a few people were trying to copy it. The one thing that Mitchell forgot to mention was that Herschel Walker only ate 1 meal a day, right? AKA intermittent fasting, AKA OMAD, right? So this is the end of 2011, beginning of 2012. And I'm like, intermittent fasting, like 1 meal a day, like what is this? There's just no way. You have to remember, my whole paradigm is literally 6 small meals a day, protein in every single meal. Otherwise, your body will start to break down muscle, and you become catabolic, and your metabolism will crash, and you'll get fat, right? That's the paradigm that not just me, the entire fitness world was living in. Like, this is the way bodybuilders do it. This is the way normal people should do it, right? So, I looked more into this intermittent fasting, and there wasn't a whole lot of information on it back then. But there was one book, and it was called Eat, Stop, Eat by Brad Pilon, who is, you could easily say if he's not the pioneer of intermittent fasting for the masses, he's one of them. He's very close to being the guy who was first and influenced a lot of what was to come after. So Eat, Stop, Eat. I looked into this. I got this book, right? And basically he advocated, because I wasn't ready to go one meal a day every day. It was just too mind blowing. I was like, and just the thought of going hungry for that long, like, totally blew my mind. I was like, how am I supposed to do that? I don't know. So I got this book, and he advocated doing 1 or 2 days a week where you only eat 1 meal a day. So you're basically 1 or 2 days a week where you do 24-hour fasts. So let's say you want to fast on Wednesday. You'd have your last meal, let's say, at 7 p.m. on Tuesday. You don't eat until 7 p.m. on Wednesday, right? And he advocated doing that once or twice a week. I was like, okay. So this guy had some science behind it. He was talking about things like, growth hormone, which is elevated when you fast, allegedly. That's what the science says, at least. He's talking about like inflammation being reduced, and I was like, ooh, all these things sounds really good. Like, I had some inflammation in my shoulder, so reduction in inflammation sounds great. Growth hormone going up sounds incredible. Insulin going down is good, because when insulin is elevated too high, increases your blood sugar. Sugar doesn't get into your muscles and your cells, and creates a whole host of problems like diabetes and all kinds of chronic illness. So I was like, that sounds great. Let me do it. And I did. I remember very specifically my first 24-hour fast. I was working that day at Planet Fitness, and I felt weird. I felt very strange. I was like, my stomach was growling. I was really hungry. But at the same time, I felt like this kind of high. I felt like sort of, looking back, I was probably a little bit lightheaded, because I know eating 6 small meals a day over a year and a half, not particularly healthy. Some of it was healthy, right? My parents at home, they cooked pretty healthy, for the time, like chicken, rice, potatoes, lots of fish, fairly healthy. We limited the desserts, we didn't have dessert every day, but so looking back, I realized, part of the withdrawals from, having my insulin spiked every couple of hours, my blood sugar was probably like freaking out. So I felt probably a little bit lightheaded. I was definitely hungry, but by the end of the day, undeniably, I felt a little bit high as well. I felt like really good, and my stomach felt flat. I was like, oh, there's no food in here. And, I felt light and flat and not bloated and full of food like I usually was, right? 6 small meals of protein every day. That's gonna clog you up a little bit. So, I felt good and bad. I felt hungry, in which I didn't like being hungry. No one likes being hungry, but I also felt really good at the same time. And after that, I was slightly hooked. And I can honestly say, I think I tried Brad Pilon's method, I think, for 1 or 2 more weeks, where I did 1 or 2 24-hour fasts, in a week. And after that, I was like, screw it. I feel so good. I'm going to do this every day. I'm going to do it the Herschel Walker method. And I dived right in. I did 1 meal a day for a while. For a while. Not, for most days. Like, I think 5 or 6 days a week I tried to do 1 meal a day. So I literally just go home. I would have dinner, whatever mom and dad cooked. And if I was still feeling hungry, throw in some eggs, break out the chips, all that good stuff. So it still wasn't, the healthiest thing, but it was 1 meal a day. And the thing is, my inflammation actually did go down. So that was that was it. And after that, I've been doing some kind of intermittent fasting on and off ever since. Shortly after that, Martin Burke, who's another sort of pioneer in the intermittent fasting realm or industry, he came out with his method, which is the lean gains method, which is you fast for 16 hours every day. So that includes sleep. So basically, you hold off eating breakfast, and then you basically eat in an 8-hour window. And I want to say that is the most popular intermittent fasting protocol even today, because it's fairly easy to do. You're only skipping breakfast, then you have lunch, let's say at 12, and then as long as you get your last meal finished before 8, that's a nice 16 hours of fasting, 8 hours of feasting. And after that, various other protocols came out, like the Warrior Diet. I forget the guy's name, Ori Hoffelmaker, I think that's his name. Came out with the Warrior Diet after that. So after that, intermittent fasting became much more mainstream, and I've been doing it on and off ever since 2011. I'm kind of proud to say that I got in on the intermittent fasting train before it got kind of popular because of the crazy trainer at Planet Fitness who told me about Herschel Walker. But he neglected to tell me about intermittent fasting. I had to find that out on my own. So where am I at now? So now I'm 31 years old. I live in LA. I'm 170 pounds, and I've definitely put on some weight. And oh no, we're in the dark. Come back. Sorry about that. Hang on 1 second. We're bringing our lights back. Oh no. Sorry for the technical difficulties here. It looks like we have lost our lights, so unfortunately we're going to have to go to the room lighting, which means it might not be that good. Which is unfortunate. Let me just make sure. It's not perfect, but we'll all live. I didn't realize this mic was right in the camera. So, oh well. It looks suggestive, doesn't it? So, where are we at? Let me just make sure things are happening. Okay, so where are we at now? So, sorry about that. I'm in LA, 31 years old. I've put on some weight. I've had a nagging back injury on my lower left side for the last, I think, 4 or 5 months now. I don't do hundreds of push-ups and pull-ups every day. I got off of that train actually a few years ago. Turned to more high-intensity, lower volume, lower frequency stuff. That's where I'm at right now. And fasting has evolved a lot over the last few years. And and I've been doing it on and off, not religiously every day. The protocol that I've been playing with mostly over the last year or so is just basically 2 meals a day. I don't even try and worry about, getting it in an 8-hour window because of my work schedule. That made it very difficult. So I would just basically eat breakfast and then eat dinner, right? But needless to say, at this point right now, I'm not what I used to be. No one is, right? And of course, that's just part of getting older, And it's funny because I always thought entering my 30s that, as long as I worked out and ate well, it would be fine. Like, this whole 30 plateau, or, once you hit 32, body doesn't work the same way. I thought it was a myth. It really isn't. But it's been very eye-opening. As soon as I hit 30, things just did not work the way they used to. And I don't know, a lot of that could just be placebo. Maybe that was me, overthinking things. I will say, this is a little slightly controversial, but it's also true. I did try to going vegan for a few months last year, and it just did not work for me. I got weaker, my skin got really dry, and that's when I hurt my back as well while I was doing the whole vegan. I'm not going to blame it on the vegan thing, but the fact is I was getting weaker and doing at that time I was doing gymnastic strength training, and I was going up to do a set of like slow squats to work on the outside of my feet, really funky looking things, The thing is, though, my legs were already shot, and this was working on like developing the outside of your ankle, and my legs gave out. I overcompensated with my back, and boom, I pulled something. But my back just has not been the same since. So, you know, despite that, I stuck with the vegan thing, you know. And when I say vegan, I wasn't strict. Actually, I shouldn't say vegan because that would offend people. I was plant-based, whole food plant-based, 5 or 6 days a week. And then on the weekends, I would usually just, if it was pizza, I'd have it. If there was some chicken, I would have it. But, you know, I just noticed things just weren't the same during that part. So eventually I came off of that, but my back still has never fully recovered. And because of that, my exercise routine has been limited. I haven't been able to work out the way that I have wanted to. And so I've gained weight. Working in an office doesn't help. Before I was working in an office, I was working at another, like an indoor cycling studio here in LA. And so I was on my feet all the time. But as soon as you go to that office job, and this happened to me when I was living in Boston, as soon as you get to that office job, you're not moving around the same way. The weight just creeps up. Offices tend to have a lot of food around. My office, this last office, had beer 1 day a week. You know, it's just really hard to turn down free food and free beer. Put it this way, we're hardwired to survive at any cost, right? And if something is put in front of you and it's free, like all of your senses are like, eat it, because, you know, biologically speaking, we're still programmed to think that maybe we don't know when our next meal is coming, so therefore you always take advantage of food. That's part of the reason that we have, in my opinion, a weight issue in the world, or obesity epidemic, if you want to call it that. It's just that we have access to food is so easy now, and we are literally hardwired to consume food, because biologically, you know, our ancestors, in theory, didn't know when the next meal was coming, so they would load up, you know, especially if the winter months were coming, right? We're programmed to like load up on food because we have to get through the winter. Fortunately, we still have access to food during the winter. Not unfortunately. Fortunately, we do, but, you know, biologically, that's why you know, I think that's part of the reason we have so many holidays in the wintertime, is to take advantage of that idea of, you know, biologically speaking, we're just, I think at least, we're programmed to eat a lot during the winter. Quick aside, if you guys do have any comments or questions, feel free to drop them, you know, in the comment section. I should be able to see them on this thing. But yeah, if you have anything, if you want to ask me anything, if you have any questions, if you want to bash anything I've said, or, you know, if you're a staunch believer in veganism or something, you want to just bash me, go ahead. That is what we're here for. But anyway, that's kind of where I'm at right now in terms of my nutrition. My nutrition, honestly, has been awful. It was pretty good up until the holidays, and I just have never gotten back to what I was doing before. So, at least for any great length of time. A few days a week, I'll be good, and then other days of the week, I'll be like, Pizza Hut, it is, McDonald's, Carl's Jr.'s, and obviously, you know, I was at work, so there were these like dark chocolate raisins. So I get a cup of those every day or two because they were just so delicious. So that is kind of the situation that I'm in. The thing I'm gonna try now. So another reason that I think I have this back pain is because I have actually gained so much weight. So about 8 months ago, I weighed in at 155 pounds. Yesterday morning, I was 173 pounds. So in about 8 months, I've gained 20 pounds. And there's no way that weight isn't contributing to the pain in my back. So yeah, I definitely threw out my back during that gymnastic training, but I've never recovered from it, and the weight gain hasn't helped, right? So I know, I can feel it, I can see it. The scale is telling me this, that I'm carrying, you know, a lot of extra weight around the middle, and I kind of need to lose it. Bad Tacos is actually going to Chicago next week. We're actually going to go to Star Wars Celebration, and that's going to require me to be on my feet a lot. Obviously, all of us, we're all going to be on our feet a lot for many hours during the day. So I need sort of a plan to reduce the inflammation in my lower back and then also kick as many pounds as possible in a safe way between now and then, right? Just so that I'm not, the 5 days in Chicago at Star Wars Celebration isn't complete and utter agony. So the newest form of fasting that has come out is a crazy zany guy on YouTube, goes by the name of Cole Robinson, and his method is called the snake diet. So basically, he just believes in fasting, much more extreme version than anything that we've talked about here on this stream before. If you're grossly overweight, if you're grossly overweight, he suggests you just fast as long as you can. And then when your sleep starts getting compromised, that's when you have your refeed days. That's when you eat, basically. I'm not grossly overweight. I'm like 20 pounds, maybe 15 pounds overweight, right? So I'm not grossly overweight. So I don't need to go that extreme. I don't need to fast for days and days and days and days and days on end. That would be the fastest way to do it. The thing is, though, the leaner you get, the longer that you fast, the more that your adrenaline and your cortisol spike, the more compromised your sleep's going to be, right? And sleep is everything. If your sleep is compromised, it doesn't matter what you're doing, it's not good for you. So the snake diet is basically prolonged fasting or a fasting-focused lifestyle. But it's not just fasting on water. It's fasting on what Cole calls snake juice, which is really just water with some salt, some potassium, and some baking soda. And that's to keep your electrolytes up. A couple years ago, I think it's like 2.5 years ago now, I actually did a 5-day water fast, which, funnily enough, was to treat. I was having a little bit of inflammation in my shoulders. The whole shoulder inflammation thing is a consistent theme in my life. I will say this. This is the ironic thing, right? I had this pain in my lower back. My shoulders have never felt better. That's the most mind-blowing part that I don't, it's the most interesting thing to me is that my shoulders right now have the best that they've been in over 10 years. But it's my lower back right now it's giving me all the trouble. Just a quick aside, I think my shoulders feel good is because I've been balancing a lot of my pushing. And instead of doing a lot of pull-ups, which is, vertical pulling this way, I've been just subbing those out for inverted rows. And that's when you're pulling this way, right? And if you think about it, logically speaking, it just balances out the muscles, right? So if you're pushing, balance out those muscles with a lot of pulling. And the other thing as well is when you're sitting, you tend to, hunch forward. A lot of gravity is pulling your neck and your shoulders, that slump position. So just working on that pulling, every week, just to keep the strength in those muscles that keep your rear delts and your traps and that keep your shoulders back is good too. And I've specifically noticed as soon as I switched out the pull-ups for the rows, my shoulders have never felt better. It's just this goddamn back that's giving me all the problems right now. So, where was I even going with this? So snake diet, yeah. So what I have been attempting, and yesterday I fasted all of yesterday on the snake juice, and today so far I'm actually fasting dry. And a dry fast is just no food, no water. It just gets you into ketosis faster. It accelerates fat burning, reduces inflammation even quicker, etc., etc. If you are interested in snake diet, I highly recommend you go and watch a lot of these videos and then also research everything he's talking about. And this goes for anything, right? You have to, you can't just early on in my journey, I'd research a little bit and be like, I'm just going to try that. In hindsight, just vet everything, vet everyone that you come across, like look for the pros and the cons, and then do it. Yeah, at some point you do actually have to do it to see if it works for you. And that's the caveat to all of this. Like, no two bodies are the same. Everyone reacts differently to everything. Everyone has unique health conditions and fitness goals and stuff like that. Okay, so where are we at here? So yeah, my plan is I fasted yesterday, I'm fasting today, tomorrow I'm gonna break my fast because I want to work out, and working out on an empty stomach where you fasted for 2 straight days doesn't seem like a good idea to me. So I want to work out, and so I'm gonna break my fast with some eggs, some snake juice first, then some eggs, and then I'm gonna work out and then have a big meal, and then I want to get right back into that fasting. So I'm trying to shed pounds as quickly as possible. So this is probably a good segue into what exactly is fasting. I've been using this term a lot. Fasting, intermittent fasting. What is it? Fasting is when you set aside a predetermined time, and that's important, a predetermined time where you're going to abstain from food food and maybe water, okay? Predetermined is an important concept here because that's what makes it different than starvation. Starvation is when you're forced to abstain from food because it's literally not available to you. So you do not have access to it. Starving is you have no way to eat. You have nothing to eat. Fasting is when you put aside a predetermined amount of time where you're going to abstain from food for some effect. What is fasting good for? Fasting is good for, obviously, dropping weight. Okay? It's good for lowering insulin. It's good for reducing inflammation. It's good for increasing growth hormone. And all of these things are tied together. All of these factors don't live in a bubble all by themselves, right? Fasting is also good for autophagy. And autophagy is your body's ability to break down sick, diseased, or just broken parts of your body, like cells that aren't functioning properly, scar tissue, stuff like that. Breaking it down because your body's going to have to turn to itself to find fuel, right? So it's going to break down the stuff it doesn't need first to use that as fuel to give your other cells, stuff to use. It's basically a form of catabolism, right? And in the fitness industry, the word catabolism is demonized. Catabolism means break down, and it's usually referred to breakdown of muscle. Breakdown of muscle is the last thing you want. Fasting actually has a muscle-sparing effect. During times of fasting, your body pumps up growth hormone. Growth hormone is a very muscle-sparing hormone. I should say that I'm not a scientist. I'm not a doctor. A lot of this is just stuff that I've researched on my own. I definitely invite everyone or encourage anyone who's watching to go and research this stuff on their own. I'm not well versed in reading science and stuff like that, so I have been forced to rely on other people to take information, dissect it, and then kind of give it out to the masses. And there can be an issue with that, right? Because it's very hard to translate something and not influence it in some way. It might not be a perfect reading of that scientific paper or whatever. I do recognize that. 1 second. So fasting it's good for all kinds of things, right? So it's good for, if you're sick. A lot of people, when they're sick, their appetite reduces, right? A lot of times when an animal is sick, an animal will not go eat food. It will actually fast to try and get to have the body fight the sickness more effectively. Digestion takes up a lot of your body's resources. It takes up 30% of your resources, give or take, depending on how big the meal is. So imagine you give your body, your digestion, an extended break from having to digest food. A lot of those resources can go toward flushing out toxins or fighting viruses and bacteria, or harmful bacteria, that kind of stuff. So fasting is very useful for that. Fasting is great for epileptic people who have epilepsy. The keto diet, right, is very effective for people with epilepsy, but so is fasting, because when you fast, guess what happens? You enter ketosis. What is ketosis? Ketosis is your body runs on glucose, right? When you fast and you're not taking in any carbs or any food, your body's going to go through glucose. Your liver your body stores I think 2 2 to 300 grams of glucose in your liver. And as you fast, as you don't eat, your body is going to use that glucose in your liver to power your brain. What happens when you run out of glucose in your liver, though? Your body breaks down fat to create this thing called a ketone, and your brain is able to function on ketones. So you bypass the need for glucose, and your body is able to break down fat, break it down into ketones for your brain to use. If we didn't have this ability, we wouldn't be here. We would have died out a long time ago, logically speaking. But that's like the basic process. I'm giving it a very basic explanation, but that's basically what happens. So people with epilepsy, it just apparently ketosis and fasting help reduce those epileptic shocks, because something with the glucose in the brain triggers them in some people. Not everyone, but in some people, that's like a main trigger. It's great for cognitive. It's great for cognitive thinking ability. I've noticed on a personal level, when I fast, my thinking gets very clear. My memory improves. You ever heard that? You ever heard that saying, "Carbs make you stupid"? There's a little bit of truth to it. Not in an indirect sense. When you eat carbs, like all of a sudden you get kind of that brain fog. You usually, at least for me, I'm ready to go to bed. And there's a lot of different reasons for that, but for a lot of people, that's the same thing that happens, right? Okay, let me just, sorry about that. There we go. So, yeah. Actually, that's fasting. You guys get the idea. Go look it up if you're really interested. So that's kind of me. That's what I do with fasting. That's what I am doing. I hope to update you guys with how it's going. I'm putting together a little bit of a video, so I hope to release that at some point, just to show you how I feel, how it went, how my back feels. Like I said, this is really kind of like an intervention. I'm trying to do this to drop weight and reduce inflammation quickly, and for an event that's less than a week away. So I have to. That's kind of why I'm doing it. That's the need. I'm going to be standing. I got to get this back pain under control. So now I just kind of want to talk about what has been the impact. Actually, you know what? Let's skip ahead. Looking ahead, let's project out the trends, because even just in my little story that I've just given you, hopefully I've been able to relay sort of like the trends in the fitness and health industry, right? We've seen some ebbs and flows. We've seen some changes. To me, it's fascinating that the dogma, or the widely held belief, and it still is in some circles, but back then when I was 21 years old, is that 6 small meals a day, and now you can get away without eating for like 48 to 72 hours, right? And that has some great advantages and some great effects. So it's very interesting to project out trends in the fitness and the health industry, where they're going. I foresee fasting to continue to play a huge part in the development of health and nutrition and fitness, and it'll be really interesting to see what people do with intermittent fasting, how it'll shape different aspects and whatnot. For instance, there's a lot of promising research on fasting and cancer prevention, or using it in conjunction with chemotherapy to help cancer patients actually beat cancer, beat tumors and whatnot. So and not just fasting, right? We have a lot of different ideologies in terms of nutrition, and the big one right now is probably veganism. Another one that is sprung up, and is starting to gain a little bit of a foothold is the exact opposite of that. It's the carnivore diet, and that's people who have found great benefits of just eating nothing but animal-based foods. So things like meat, organ meat. Some people will have dairy, cheese, and that's it. And they've reported great effects to that. the thing that sort of bothers me is that all of these different ideologies have become cult-like. They've become like religions. So much so that if you follow one of these dietary tenets, one of these dietary practices, it's almost like it's almost like being part of a religion. You have to defend it. You have to believe it is the best way and that there is no other way. Or at least that's what a lot of people prescribe to when they join one of these dietary practices. Oh man, I'm definitely losing steam here. Again, guys, feel free to comment in the comments here if you have any questions or you just want to rip me in a new one. That stuff is all good in the neighborhood. So yeah, whoops, that's not good. So I just think it's a very interesting thing to see. Like people get so, for instance, if you're a vegan and someone attacks veganism, you can't help but get offended. Same thing in the carnivore camp. I assume same thing in the intermittent fasting camp, to be honest, though I haven't really seen it. Fasting to me is less of a, it doesn't seem to have the same cult-like mentality as some of these other aspects of diets and even fitness. It's more of like a tool. It's less of a religion. It's more of like a tool that you can implement, and anyone can implement. It doesn't matter what style that you eat. Intermittent fasting is really just a tool. So maybe not as much so, but you know, as we move along in this age of social media, where you know a lot of people, social media is a tool to promote whatever it is that you're doing or whatever it is you believe. You know, it's really interesting to see that people get very entrenched in their ideologies, and we see this in politics. Obviously, diet. We even see this in like stuff like movies. You know, like old school Star Wars fans and new school Star Wars fans, or Marvel versus DC, right? Lego versus Duplo. No, I'm just kidding. That one doesn't exist. At least I don't think it does. But you know, people get very entrenched in the things that they believe, and I don't know. It's just interesting to me because I feel like people. It's so much easier to get entrenched today than it was maybe even 10 years ago. I don't know. Maybe it was just part of me being naive or young or just, you know, ignorant to other people. But it really does seem to me recently, within the last couple of years, that people latch on to whatever it is they're doing or whatever it is they believe, and they make that their entire identity. And anything that challenges that, you know, an immediate defense mechanism rises up inside of them. You know, and I've noticed that in myself. I'm not saying, I am innocent of this by any means. You know, I think what I'm trying to say is that it's so much easier now to do that, to find yourself in that. I feel like we're in a place where everyone is entrenched in what they believe, and they have to be entrenched. You know, everyone sees the other, or another way of doing something as wrong, and therefore they are the enemy. You know, and like I said, this is just sort of me ranting, and you know, I just find it so interesting, and I feel like this entrenchment is applicable to almost every sphere of society. You know, and I think the other part as well is because of social media, people are able to lash out and antagonize and fight without having to put a face to your words. So people are able to be idiotic and, you know, to fight without having to give anything up. You don't have to put yourself on the line. You can literally just attack, and there's no consequences, right? Before social media, if you didn't like something, you'd have to weigh the benefit of actually lashing out against someone with potentially getting punched in the face, right? Now you don't have to. You can attack ad nauseum online, anonymously, and there's no repercussions. In fact, all it does is make you feel superior, like you've won something, right? When you've really won nothing. I mean, what have you accomplished? Nothing. And I think I really do feel like this, or at least it's a huge part of it, this social media, anonymity. I can't say that word. Being anonymous in social media has really made people be like, you know what, you're wrong. Even, yeah, I don't know. Anyway, that's all I got, guys. I have run out of steam. I was gonna try and go 90 minutes today. That's what my EP, my executive producer told me to try and do. It is tough to do that, especially since I haven't eaten in a couple of days and I'm not even drinking water right now. By the way, the dry fasting today is just I'm going as long as I can, and as soon as I can't do it anymore, like I'm too thirsty, I'm too tired, I'm just gonna drink some snake juice. So that's the idea. But I do plan on fasting all the way through today. I've done a lot of like 48 or a couple of 48-hour fasts, like 2-day fasts in the last couple of months, like one-offs here and there. And most of those I've had the intention to actually go 3 days. 3 days is like when at least what the research says, 3 days is when you really start to see the benefits of autophagy, like breaking down the dead stuff or the sick stuff in your body, reduction in inflammation, burning body fat. That's when you're really supposed to start some like good results. Also, allegedly, after 3 days of fasting, your immune system is completely reset. Allegedly. Again, like, research and science is great, but, unless you're doing the experiment yourself, you're still relying on someone else to tell you something, right? In that way, is science really that different than religion? I don't know, because unless you've done the experiment yourself, literally, unless you have actually gone and you've gotten a microscope and you've looked at the cells, dividing and the cells, absorbing dead cells and stuff, you don't really know. You're relying on a paper to tell you that, which is kind of a belief, right? It just occurred to me. Science is more like religion than we'd be willing to give, because unless you do the experiment yourself, you're still relying on a piece of paper or a scientist to tell you what the truth is. You don't actually know it for yourself because you haven't done the experiment. I just blew my own mind. Damn it. All right. Thanks, guys. I really appreciate it. Talk to you soon. If you have any questions, please, or questions or comments, hit us up on any of our channels. We are Bad Tacos. Bad Tacos. We're on Instagram. We're on Facebook. We're on Twitter. We're on Twitch. So hit us up on any of those channels if you have any questions about this stuff. I hope to do some more health and fitness stuff, in the future. Especially as I take care of this back thing, because I feel like what I'm going through right now is applicable to a lot of people. A lot of people live in pain. A lot of people are a little bit overweight and want to lose some weight. A lot of people just want to, have a better life. I think I'm long past the age where I'm like, I need to be six-pack ripped and, hugely muscular. I'm way past that. The only reason that I even do anything anymore is just so I can feel good every day, right? And that means not living in pain. Right now I'm living in pain, so that's something that needs to be fixed. And I think a lot of people are in the same boat. So if you have any questions or comments, please hit us up. It's been a pleasure, and we'll talk to you soon.